Hi, it's Hazel. Welcome to my channel, Hazel and Aka Design. You can probably tell by this layout here, or this mess, that there's going to be some serious decorating of masterboard cards today. Before I get to that, though, I would like to welcome you to my channel. And if you have seen a recent video that I did earlier this week, well, I don't know what week you're watching this, a recent video where I did a flip through of my first completed purple journal. Well, if you know anything about how I've been operating, you know that I always have more stuff than will complete one project. So I'm continuing to work on a second purple journal that should be ready to flip through probably any day now. And then, of course, there's a third one in the works, plus a few minis. So also, in a recent video, I showed you a couple of master boards. Now, this might jog your memory. This was one of them. Although I'm finding it hard to believe that I got this much out of it, and this much out of this one. Yet they all kind of look like they belong together. So I don't know what's going on. And then this is clearly another style. So just to save a wee bit of time, I did begin, well, I gathered up a bunch of supplies and I did glue a couple of things down. But I know that I love watching decorating videos. I love hearing people's thought process. So I'm kind of assuming that maybe you do too. The problem, though, or the challenge, there are never any problems in the craft room. The challenge is that when there are this many things going on, it's hard to maybe see everything, like it's good to do them at once, but if you want them to have excuse me, if you want them to have their own character and not just be more of the same, then you kind of need to do them one by one. So maybe let's just randomly do that. And I will kind of explain what I'm using as I do that. Now this, if you can, hopefully you can tell that that's a little house. Now that's a, this was my first attempt, well, this too, because it's limp. It was my first attempt at die cutting bias tape that I had ironed flat. So then I learned that I should back it with something. Now this is just a piece of another one. I've used the rest of it elsewhere. I love this die and I love these. But these have been kicking around a while. And of course, they're such skinny little pieces that sometimes it's difficult to, like, I don't know if you can see, there's a smidge of white there. I've had to kind of go in and reinforce some of these in places. This is not good here at all. So I think if I were doing that again, I would maybe use less, because see, this wants to lift. Yeah, see, that's lifting up there. I would use less fiddly, detailed, whatever you want to call it, little stencil, little die cuts, because having to do this remedial gluing is not fun. Or I guess the other thing would be glue it onto a cardstock that is the same color as the bias tape. Yeah, that's a smarter idea. Glue it onto the matching die cuts so that if it does lift somewhere, at least it's not that obvious. Oh, do you love my blouse, by the way? When I have worn this all out, wouldn't this be great for journals? Yes, she gave the shirt off her back. Anyway, okay, let's do this guy first. So, I don't remember. I didn't glue these greens down just now, so I'm thinking that that was what I had done during the masterboard process itself. Now, one thing that I didn't grab and don't have, well, I guess it's within reach, is access to some labels, but we'll see. I have so much other stuff here, maybe we don't need any. Okay, so I have some scrap pieces of my player piano dyed papers. Now, sometimes they look bluer than they do purple, but I think it can all work here. I have a piece of film strip, which comes across as purple. I have this lace. It's rather wide, but I could cut it narrower if necessary. Some white rickrack. That's kind of on the wide side, though. Postage stamps, both the real thing and I thought I had some digital ones here. Yeah, here, a couple digital ones. Scraps of paper. Oh, and I finally, I also fussy cut these little, all of these little, well, let's call them thumbnails and more, were on the cover, so it was firm. It's, you know, the cover of a cross-stitch pattern book. So where they had been overlapping, because most of them were standalone, but in some cases they had them sort of like this. So those have a notch out of them, so take a little extra care with those. I started to say that I looked through and pulled out a bunch of these. They're not stickers, but they're on vellum. Now, I remember the first time I ever saw a YouTuber working with them. It was E from Scrapbooking with Me, and she had a little book similar to this. And I thought, oh my goodness, is that not the best thing since sliced bread? Now, so of course, eventually I found some and I bought that and proceeded not to use it. So expect to see these showing up over and over again, because what is the use of keeping this? And again, this is probably 2 years old or more. So there are probably even nicer options out there now. I just scattered a few buttons around to remember to use them. I still have some of this to use. Now, it might be a bit wide for these projects, but I have a couple of balls of pearl cotton and some of these wooden beads that are not beads, buttons that I think the dollar store was selling. So I put, no, I don't know, I think you're supposed to put a knot. I did run some of that thread through the holes in the button. I could have left this a little longer so it'd be easier to do. And because the thread wasn't showing up that much on this pattern button, so I'm just doing, let me do a couple knots. I should have done this beforehand. I just didn't think of that knot. And I do have my needle threaded to show you another one if there's any need for that. I could probably trim, well, maybe I won't trim that till I know I need to. Thank goodness I threaded this when you guys weren't looking, because it's quite a small hole. So if you want to have this sort of look, I think these are too long. Let's just trim them a bit. Now you almost can't see them. Anyway, instead of starting, like if you were really sewing a button onto something, you'd start at the back side. You'd go through the fabric and go through the back side. But we want the thread, we want one of the tails to end up on top. So, yeah, and don't be, leave a bit of a tail there so that you can, and I'm just going, so you have something to work with to tie it off. I'm just going to go through a few times, back and forth, up and down, so that, again, it's a more substantial, like if you were sewing a button on a garment, you'd go through several times so that it actually holds. This is more times than I did on the last one. And then, of course, end up on the top, on the right side. So I'll just... Yoy, a person's all thumbs when they're trying to do something on. I guess another thing I could do with those fibers, I even have a different couple of colors. I have some really thin yarn, is do some thread clusters under some focal points. So I'll reach for that as soon as I finish this as a reminder. Now, of course, you're not going to see all of these things decorated, because that would take forever. Oh, probably still too long. So we have a couple of those ready to go. I also have, now there's really, that's more blue than it is purple, but I have a few of those threaded onto a safety pin as a reminder to use safety pins. And this is very fine yarn of some kind. So actually, let's make a few. Whoops. And maybe we'll mix the colors just to. So you make a little pile. Okay, let me go. Well, we'll leave that there for the time being. I was working on this one, I think. So I just tucked this off in the corner because I wanted it to kind of be, look like it's grounded there. But what else can we add? I do, like I said, I have postage stamps. Some of them are really quite beautiful. Do we want to try some string on here and then add this? Sometimes if the cancellation stamp is particularly beautiful, or the envelope was particularly beautiful, I don't bother trying to remove the stamp. Now that's really... Maybe this is a bit big, but it sort of does become a focal point then. And you probably noticed that I did stitch around these things yesterday. My intention for this piece was that it'd be a side tuck or belly band. I sure hope it's not too tall. Now that it's only 8 inches. Now that I've sewn around it. I think I can just do that. Now, just to save some aggravation, I refilled our glitter glue yesterday. I was working on my purple. I wonder if I need Fabri-Tac. I refilled both of them, and I added that, what is it called? Acetone, to thin this out also so it would flow better. But yeah, maybe I should use this. Anyway, I was working on my purple journal during last night's Oilers game against Vancouver Canucks. And thank goodness they pulled out a victory. I mean, they played much better than the time before. And so the series is tied at 2. They play again, I think, Thursday night. Luckily, the flight or the distance between Vancouver and Edmonton is not that great. So, nobody is getting all worn out and beat up just from the air travel. I'll see if I need to add another dab here and there just to make the strings sort of stay where I want them to. Again, the issue with Fabri-Tac is that it is slightly glossy. And I think in this case, I'll probably, do I like the shape? I'll probably just use this on here because now it's a bit of a lumpy surface that it has to go over. So, number 1, crafting while you're watching something that you're interested on TV, I think is smart. Number 1, if it tends to be an emotional thing, like a hockey game where you have a vested interest in, I mean, I don't have any money riding on it or anything, but if you have, you're really, it's an emotional thing. It helps to have the distraction of the craft. And it also means that you're not laying down your crafting tools and stepping away from your room for, 3 or 3.5 hours and not being productive. So, best of both worlds. I wonder, should I add a button just for the heck of it? That seems kind of in the middle of nowhere. Maybe if I put it there, though. So, again, probably there's nothing, unless you're brand new, there's probably nothing new under the sun that you'll see here today, other than kind of my thought process, my design aesthetic, and an overdose of purple. Yay! In the well, I don't want to say next because who knows. In an upcoming video, in a video coming to you very, very soon, will be, see, I've been holding on to this scrap of piano paper for so long. Anyway, coming to a video near you will be my first attempt at a spine angle. Yay! There has been, if you've been watching videos, you know that I've thrifted a lot of jewelry. I've been washing jewelry. So now I'm finally going to be putting it to use. I think I'm going to say amen to this one simply because, the possibility always exists to get, to add more. So we'll put that one aside. Oh, I should, before I make a pile on top of it, I should show you the latest masterboard that I did. I started this last night during the game. I had all these images out of I don't think it was a cookbook. It was more like a wellness book. I see something lifting here. Where they're going to talk about diet and exercise and, yoga and tea and things like that. And I thought, well, and they had a lot of white space. So they were essentially these images that were about 2 by 2. So I thought, well, okay, that could be the background. And then I also had this that I've had probably for 2 years. And it was something on a roll. I can't show you because I finally used it up. Oh, maybe I can show you, but you won't see. It was a roll like this that's paper-backed, but it also has this thing that if you lift it off the backing, you end up with this open weave design. So I thought, okay, I could fool around with this and use, 3 pieces. And I just wanted to use it up. So I did that. And it looked a little bit, maybe skimpy. So then I found these stickers on something that I bought a long time ago. And I glued those down, and it still seemed kind of itty-bitty. So then I dipped into my big drawer here of stickers. I have a little book here of vellum. These are not stickers. And of course that little book that I showed you a while ago. So I then thought, well, what am I saving them for? Let me glue them down. Use it, don't store it. So yeah, at some point, maybe for journal number 3 or whatever, I will cut that up. Anyway, that was a detour down a rabbit hole. Okay, should we work on this one now? Okay, so I definitely want to use this feather, because if I had a nickel for every time I've handled it, picked it off the floor, put it down, blah, blah, blah. I did glue this circle down. I can't remember where it came from. This is a bigger piece, so maybe I can accommodate some of this. Piano paper. You know, this stuff tends to be fairly fragile, so if you know, it pretty well needs to be glued down. Now, I guess the disadvantage of sewing first is you either cover up your thread, or I guess we won't worry about that. So I think I will use just my Yoo-Hoo. Gently. Oh, that's not the, this is a, I have a standby stick ready to go. That's not the one I wanted to use. I also have this. So we'll put, okay, what am I, okay, glue. Let's try this again. And because I usually like to have elements repeat, I'll probably put another bit someplace else, maybe down here. I hope you're well. I hope that, again, I guess there's no point in me talking about the upcoming live sale that I'm a guest seller at, because you'll be seeing this. This will be posted after that sale. Oops. Oh, I know what I started. I turned on the camera too soon. I was going to look, I looked through my stencils, because this reminded me that stamping these things would add another look to the project. Now, this is that gorgeous paper that was wrapped around some flowers I got for my birthday. So it's like cardstock, a stripy cardstock color on the back, and then this beautiful purple on the front. Anyway, yeah, I must have got distracted. I was going to look for a script stamp, like an acrylic stamp that I could fold and you know, use just portions of it, because I don't want a strong, intense, readable stamp. I just want the indication of some text here and there. Now, because I have that there, The feather needs to be someplace else, otherwise it gets lost in the shuffle. That probably wasn't a good idea. I also have some of this. This was the wrapping from a you know, in those first aid things that have the rolls of gauze. I haven't bought gauze for years because, you know, once you buy a package of that in 1980, it pretty well lasts you your lifetime. Anyway, we did have a bit of excitement here the other day. We are farmers, for those of you who may not know. And so I'm busy doing my thing. My husband is busy doing his thing. And all of a sudden, and luckily I wasn't doing a video at the time, he comes into those, he says, "You have to take me for stitches." Well, that's never a good way to open a conversation, is it? So, anyway, I don't think we can use this feather, so it'll have to go on something else. So now I have to change plans in midstream. I've got this, but it's kind of thick, so I won't use that. Do I care about do I want a Russian plain on here? Maybe if I cut it in half. Let's do that. I don't think it can fly if it's cut in half. Anyway, so back in the day, I was had qualifications as an EMTA, Emergency Medical Technician, ambulance. And so, you know, I'm calm in an emergency and kind of have a pretty good head on my shoulders in terms of what needs to happen next. So I look at it, and it was right below his right knee. And for the men in the audience, or anyone who's ever, or any women who have used angle grinders, he was trying to cut something. Because it's so dry, he didn't want to use a cutting torch because, you know, if there's a spark and you start a grass fire in these, you know, conditions, number one, how could you live with yourself? And number two, the financial consequences would be horrific. So, geez, I do have everything here except the kitchen sink. Feels like it needs a focal point. I wish this feather could carry the day, or maybe it can if I cover up that plane. Yeah, let's do that. Anyway, so he was using an angle grinder instead of a cutting torch. And that thing must have hit something or other. He was cutting steel. And he was working on a graveled area, so it's not like he was in dry grass or anything. But anyway, the thing caught and sort of, well, I guess, okay, anyone who's ever used electric tools, or cordless tools, I mean, knows that sometimes there's kickback and sometimes there's, you know, a thing catches and behaves not in a way that you expect it. Anyway, so it sort of jumped and essentially, I guess as it was falling, you know, cut his skin. Now, the amazing part is, and don't ask me how this is possible, all his jeans have are sort of like a skid mark almost, but yet the skin was cut really deeply, 1/4 of an inch deep and about 2 inches long. Surprisingly little blood, but and not painful. That was the other thing that was weird. I think I'm just going to leave this for now. This seems like a gap here. Or do I need to put a second stamp on to make it look like we had a plan? Oh yeah, we had a plan. Anyway, not much blood, but then when I said that to the... Wrong glue stick. When I said that to the doctor at the hospital, he said, well, you know, yes, there's blood everywhere in the body, but more, obviously, richer blood supply in some areas than in others. So, like, if you got punched in the nose, you know it would bleed like a son of a gun. This did not bleed very much, but it looked ugly. And my concern, because it was so deep, was did it cut any ligaments and tendons? And again, how many ligaments and tendons are there at the front of the knee? So that was another thing, a question I raised. And there are ligaments there. Anyway, and I wouldn't have thought of this, but then I got my medical degree through Cracker Jack popcorn. So anyway, we deferred to the doctor when he thought an x-ray was a good idea just to make sure that the thing hadn't hit bone. And it didn't, so that was good. So then, and we were lucky, like this hospital is small. It's only about 35 minutes away. See, I need a little repair here again. And look at Tor. Anyway, it's only about 35 minutes away. Luckily, you know, there were only two people, or from what I could tell, there were only two people ahead of us. I did take something to read because, you know, sometimes you could read War and Peace while you're waiting in an emergency department. Never brought it into the hospital. Roy had a meeting the next day. I said, why don't you take your meeting package? Again, if we're here for 6 hours, then at least you've got your package read. Anyway, that wasn't an issue. So did the whole intake process and got seen by the doctor quite soon. He did get taken away for an x-ray. And like I said, that was, that ruled out any, I think I might just put that there. But do I want a little stickeruno underneath? Or do I want something like this? These were, I have 3 of these stuck down. These were pieces, or these were stickers that came with some stationery or I don't know, something. I've had them probably for 25 years. I love them. I can show you some others. I still have more. I just love them. But it's time, people. It's time. Anyway, so because they were a bit short-staffed there, the doctor was doing everything by himself, which is kind of, you know, a slow process. Anyway, at one point because, you know, once you open that sterile tray, and you're in a sterile zone, or he's in a sterile zone, I got pressed into service when I had to open a second package of sutures for him, because, of course, he couldn't touch that with his gloved hands. So he ended up with 6 stitches, a tetanus shot, prescription for antibiotics, and was sent away. So yeah, that's how we spent about, between the driving and the time there, yeah, good 3.5 hours total. So you can see how a woman's well-laid plans can go awry when there's a little farm incident. Now, of course, it's vital. The stitches will stay in for, I think he said 10 to 14 days. Does have to go back in to have them removed. He did want to see the wound in a few days' time just to see that, you know, nothing was going awry. because, of course, because it was deep, I think the concern is infection. Once before, this is years ago, he had done, I don't know what it is with knees, but he had done something. He had sort of wounded a knee. And, you know, once there's a break in skin, it doesn't take long for an infection to set in. And that, I mean, you'd have to have been a blind person not to see that this was a serious condition. We could literally see the infection spreading. And when you can see that in it, oh, darn it. I spilled these guys. Do I need to, since this fell out, do I need to put a heart on here? Of course, the typical signs of infection are redness, heat, pain. So it's warm to the touch, it looks red and maybe angry, and I can't pick this up with these nails, and it hurts. That I can't just randomly glue that down there. That would look foolish. Anyway, we could literally see this infection moving. So get him to an emergency department, and he gets admitted because that, of course, was a sign of blood poisoning. And that, my lovelies, is nothing to fool around with. So he got admitted, and heavy-duty antibiotics through an IV. I think they kept him just one night, but then he had to return every day for an IV drip with more antibiotics. And of course, then there's another condition. Oh, there's another condition called sepsis, which can be, of course, deadly. So that's when you already have an infection, and then for some reason your body shuts down, and you can go from having it start to dead in something like 12 hours. So, you know, you gotta take all this stuff seriously. Okay, I'm leaving that one there. I'll show you all the pieces at the end. And I'd better keep an eye on the time, because goodness knows I could tell you stories until the cows come home. Let's do something a little different. Now, I have this scrap piece of lace. Now, it's a wee bit too short for that. Too short for that. I thought I had a piece that was just about, oh, maybe those two are the same length. No wonder it's too short for both of them. I can trim. Better to trim than to be too short. Or I could do it. I could do it at the top also. That's nothing so beautiful there. But do I want to add maybe something like that? Yeah. Oh, again, reaching for the wrong one. The worst thing that has ever happened, well, no, I guess I don't know why I'm telling you all these farm safety stories or farm incident stories. Years ago, and this would be probably 35 years ago. Oh, I wonder, I might have told you this story. I shouldn't. I won't tell it again. Because you're going to think, oh, the woman has Alzheimer's. She keeps telling us the same stories. Okay, let's see how this looks. I'll tell you one other story. And I hope I haven't told you that one. This is about 25 years ago. My mom and I, no, more like 30 years ago, I guess. My mom and I had the business. And I had gone to Edmonton for the day. And Roy was well aware of that. However, he, and you know, leave a man unattended. I don't know how familiar you are with tractors, but, and this, of course, is an older tractor, We're still using it, mind you. But they have a set of stairs that you climb up, and because out of necessity, the stairs are pretty compact. You know, it's not like a staircase with a landing and a whatever. It's compact, and it's quite high off the ground. The first step is quite high off the ground because, of course, if you ever were to, you know, get stuck or something, you don't want your stairs ripped off in a mud puddle or something. Anyway, the man had packed his own lunch, so he had a 2-liter of water, I suppose, and some sausage and some, you know, Ukrainians love their kubasa, their, you know, garlic sausage, snacks and whatever. So he had like an armful of this stuff. And in order to get into that thing, you have to, you've already climbed up one step at least, or possibly the second one. You have to open the door, lean back a bit, swing it open so it clears your body, and then you climb up onto the landing and into the cab. Well, I guess with all his goodies, who knows what goes on in these accidents. We need closed caption cameras. Anyway, he fell backwards with all his lunch, hit the ground. Now, potentially, that could have been deadly, because if your noggin hits the wrong thing on the ground, like a rock, which is totally possible, and get schmucked just the right way, then you know that could be fatal. Anyway, he, I guess, was knocked out, comes to, but is confused, as is the case when you've been knocked out. So he phones the shop to ask to talk to me. I guess we didn't have, I don't know, didn't have cell phones yet or whatever. Anyway, and my mom says, well, no, she went to the city. She's not here. So that kind of rings a bell for him. He then gets back into the tractor and is going to drive out of the yard and onto the road. Now, whoa, that's not obviously holding. I should maybe use Fabri-Tac since we're gluing something shiny onto something rough. Oh, yeah, that's not holding. Anyway, now we live on a very quiet road. We're the only actual people on this road. There are obviously farmers that work other pieces of land. But anyway, so long story short, he's going down the driveway and must not have either looked or didn't pause long enough or whatever. Practically hits a guy who was driving by on the road. But I guess feeling confident, so he keeps going just to the neighboring piece of land, so not far, 1/8 of a mile or so. And so drives there and sees that the swather is there, but really doesn't know why. He doesn't know what he was doing there. So he is touching this piece of equipment to see if it's warm. Now, how scary is all of that behavior? Nobody likes to think that they're losing their faculties. So I guess he figured out that he figured out which was the, I guess he figured out that he was using the swather or something, so he must have worked for a while. Eventually I get home and he's telling me all this. And I said, well, number one, get cleaned up. You're going to the hospital. anytime you lose consciousness, it means you've had a concussion. We're going to get this checked out. Concussions are nothing to fool around with. So, you know, when you're a working farmer, or like in my case yesterday, hadn't even put any makeup on, was wearing my usual crafting uniform of battered old jeans and an old t-shirt. Anyway, so he's kind of fighting me on this, but, you know, sometimes you just have to insist on what's right. I don't know, is that kind of goofy? Or is that kind of cute? Maybe a little sentiment there would be good later. Anyway, so get to the hospital. This is in a different town. This is 50 kilometers away. We get there and tell the story. She takes some vitals, and I don't know if you know, but I'll tell you that one of the symptoms of a concussion are dilated pupils or uneven pupils, discharge from the ear, like a clear yellowish discharge from the ear, being knocked out, obviously, is another one. And maybe this would be better on this one. Okay, what have I not used here? I haven't used any of these guys, even though I pre-selected some. So anyway, you know, this is, again, a hospital in a small community. So as it turns out, the nurse was married to a farmer. So she understands the situation, and the personalities and so on of a guy like that. I don't know, I might have to trim that down a bit. This is gigantic, I must say. This is the other one. Seems a bit small, but I could just use part of it. Why don't I do that? So anyway, another symptom of concussion, of course, is confusion. And she's basically asking me if he's acting abnormally. And I said, well, no more than usual. You know, supportive wife. Anyway, but, you know, sometimes farm wives are kind of hard done by. So she tells a story, this nurse is telling us a story about how they had a block and tackle in, sorry, I have to close the door. Video. Sorry, guys. I had to close the door, not because he would have interrupted, because maybe he wouldn't like me telling the story. Anyway, so the nurse, they said this husband and father-in-law had a block and tackle, and there was some kind of an engine or something hanging from it. So, you know, we're talking heavy-duty, big stuff. Anyway, sometimes, I don't know if you've experienced this personally, if something is kind of in an unexpected position and out of your peripheral vision or out of your normal sight line or whatever, it's easy to walk right into it. So that's what hubby does. I was going to say breaks his head open. No, he didn't break his head open. He cut his head open. And, of course, I guess goes to the house and, you know, bleeding all over the place. And, you know, maybe feels a bit stupid, too. And so, anyway, I don't know if she was at work and he ended up coming to emerge and she's the one working on him. And he comes all swaddled in this white towel. So after she determined that he was okay and he was going to live, she gave him you-know-what for, because he had bled all over this white towel. So, of course, I think this is hilarious, and it's probably something I would have done too. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. And of course, farm accidents are nothing to fool around with. We try very hard to be sensible. Farm accidents kill and maim people every year. So even though I'm getting a chuckle out of this, telling you these stories, I fully understand the consequences. There's a woman that lives in the area who lost her husband in a combine accident. There are people in the county, say, or within an area that I'm familiar with, that see, I have to do something here, I think, because that's kind of ratty looking. What another flower over a flower? That looks kind of dumb. Oh, maybe it's time for a button. That background color matches that background color. So Fabri-Tac to the rescue. Oh, and I do have these spilled gems here. Mind you, some of them are pretty thick. Like, look at this one. This is like an actual stone. Anyway, let's go with the button. Yeah. There are people with prosthetics and so on. So it's definitely not a laughing matter. I just chalk some of this up to the foibles of human beings. Oh, and I never did use any of those these vellum stickers. Oh, did you see how that just skidded over? I must have really put a lot of glue. Not once, but twice. I'll just hold that. Or maybe better still, I'll stop touching that. You know what would have been good? Let's do it before it sets. A little thread nest. Yeah, so that's kind of what things have been like around here lately. Pick this guy up, lay this down. Now I better reapply. Some people get, and I can understand it when it's your livelihood and you're weather dependent, and you see your year's work slipping away from you because the weather isn't cooperating and you need to. So when farmers start burning the midnight oil and working when they're fatigued and, cutting corners perhaps, or careless, it's just, in hindsight, we all know that it's not worth it's not worth losing your life or a body part over. But sometimes in the moment, that slips a person's mind. Okay, how are we doing for time? Oh dear, we're almost at an hour. So I think I'm going to quit there. Quit as far as you guys are concerned. I will use some of these vellum stickers. I'll use some of these other things that I've amassed here. And just keep, oh, I didn't use any of this. Didn't use rickrack. Oh, I should show you this before I go. This is the negative space of a die cut. Again, remember, use matching. And I suppose I could try to go over that with ink too. So the negative space works just as well. And in this case, I sewed around it because, hey, this might have been good on the, oh, never mind. I'll use it on the other one. Yeah, so let me just refresh your memory. About what was accomplished besides farm safety public service announcements. Okay, so 5, I guess that's better than, like I say, better than the kick in the head. And of course, they can be further embellished. Oh, I think I envisioned all of these guys, especially to be pockets, so I don't know if I would add a little smidge of something. This feels like it could use something there. Anyway, I'm going to turn the camera off here. You will see some of these things in a follow-up video or in the journal flip through. Thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.